Welcome to Deep Look, Ultiworld's weekly radio show about the current state of Ultimate. I'm the host and the editor of Ultiworld, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me, as always, Ultiworld senior editor Keith Raynor. It is Friday, February 18th. We've got the President's Day weekend coming up. Of course, that means the President's Day invite down in San Diego, the first big West Coast major tournament of the college season. And we will be previewing that a little bit later on in the show. Keith, last Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, did you enjoy the Super Bowl, and did you win your bets? I know you had some bets.
I did win my bets, which means I enjoyed the Super Bowl. had to sweat some of them as they came down to the last drive. It was a little weird. We watched the Super Bowl at my wife's parents' house, but the Super Bowl basically starts right when my infant son will be sleeping. So it's we had to decide, okay, are we going to hang out here and watch the game and then wake him up and take him home and then put him back to sleep? Or is there some other system? So that was a little tricky. But it was the first time we've ever woken him up during his actual sleeping time and took him home and put him back to sleep. So it went okay. But that was kind of one of the big focuses of the evening. And then it was on to the betting. And I was big on T. Higgins, the Bengals T. Higgins. Bet on him to score 2 touchdowns, and he came through for me while we were driving home, I think. So I was pretty hyped in the car. But yeah, all in all, a pretty good Sunday and definitely a profitable Sunday.
An interesting Super Bowl for sure. And we also had the Queen City Tune-Up last weekend and got some college action there. We're going to break that down. UNC does get the sweep. Keith, you picked the finalists and the winners perfectly, so kudos to you.
If we had money on that, would have been profitable. Queen City Tune-Up for me too.
Certainly would have. But before we get into that, we do have some news. The Callahan Awards for 2021 have been announced by USA Ultimate. And your winners for the 2021 Callahan Award from the University of California, Santa Barbara, Jasmine Childress, and from Brown University, Azeez Adeyemi. This is notable because it is the first time that 2 black players have won the award in the same year. And it happened in Black History Month here in February, which, of course, that is not normally when the Callahan Award is announced. So a little 2 pieces of ultimate history to go into the record books. So congratulations to Childress and Azeez. Keith, what do you think of the winners this year?
But very, very exciting. It's awesome to see Black excellence recognized, to have these players having an expanded platform and be in a position to be looked up to by other players in the community. That's very cool. I think I've kind of given up on people complaining about the Callahan Award and who it should go to and blah blah blah. It's a voted upon award, so the voting body is going to decide what they value each year. There's still some people clinging to this. Oh, it should be the Heisman. It's the MVP award, and it's not. I don't know that it ever has been, but if it was, it isn't anymore. But also, what percentage of eligible voters vote on this thing, especially this year, right? This year of all years, I bet you that I'd be willing to bet 70% of eligible voters didn't know that they could vote this year. Yeah.
I mean, having run the numbers for the Donovan Award for the Division III, voting was way down this year. Maybe 50%,
even the nominations were down.
Maybe 50% of a typical year, maybe less. And it makes sense. It was not a normal college season. It had no normal cadence. A lot of people didn't play, even if they were sort of eligible to vote, because they played at sectionals or something. There's a lot of reasons that it's not a totally normal year. I mean, that said, I think Jasmine Childress probably deserved to win in the women's division. And Azeez is interesting because I think he probably had the best Callahan video. And I don't know. He's also got a national championship, right, from 2019 with Brown. And I don't know that he's the best player in this group. I think you probably look at Anders Jungst or Cole Jurek. as probably the sort of the most talented players in this group. But, Azeez played a very important role on a very, very good college team, had a great video, very likable guy. And so I'm not surprised to see him win.
And I just feel like until we run into the point where somebody who wins feels like it is bad for the award, I don't feel like getting worked up about it. You know what I mean? If we start awarding people who are actively harmful in the community or
that would never happen.
Something like that, that's when I start to be okay, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? There have been some years sprinkled in where it's been okay, we're really missing out on somebody who deserved to be recognized. But as long as we're still recognizing deserving people, I just don't have the energy to get super worked up about it. I mean, that's part of why we created the Ulti-World Awards, is because, we had a vision of what could be awarded in the community and felt like the Callahan didn't meet that. But that doesn't mean that the Callahan doesn't have any meaning or that it doesn't meet other needs in the community. So, I mean, congratulations to Azeez and Jasmine, and it's super exciting to see them get the recognition that they're getting. Especially, I know I've seen a lot of people really positively respond to Azeez in particular because he's essentially a role player for that team. I mean, he plays an important role, but you don't see that role rewarded very frequently with this kind of award.
For sure.
So, it's not uncommon for people on our D-Pody ballots to not even get All-American selections. It is hard as a defender to stand out. So for that to be something else that's a part of the story is also interesting to me. And I'm seeing people celebrate that. It's great to see a D-line guy get the award.
Yeah. And, the group of people that gets nominated is not always an overlapping Venn diagram with the players who are the best players for their teams. Number one, John Randolph for Brown was not nominated. I'm sure he will be this year, but he was not nominated, so he can't win. That's a difference, and that's why a Player of the Year award from Ultiworld fills a different role, which is recognize the best player and the best players, regardless of whether they were nominated or not. So, it remains the most important award in Ultimate. It is the one that people go back and talk about. No one cares who won the club awards. No one cares. I'm not saying that they should or shouldn't care. They just don't. No one remembers who won the Kathy Poofall Award. Sorry, but everybody remembers who won the Callahan Award. And this is the one that just has become the most important award in the sport. Keith, there's been chatter online about the way this award was announced. USA Ultimate releasing it on social media, specifically on Twitter with a video, and didn't really announce beforehand. There was a tweet a couple hours before the award was announced that suggested that the award was going to be given out, but it came out late on Wednesday night Eastern time, around 9:30 to 10 o'clock. Did you take issue with the way the award was announced?
I think it was a bit sloppy, so to speak. Just kind of throwing it out there late night Eastern time. It not necessarily the shine that it deserved, but what they put together for those awards was cool. So I appreciate that. And it's difficult in a year like this. Typically they have a pre-designed system for giving it out. In the last pandemic affected season, they were able to do the award show with us, logistically challenging in this season as well. So it's difficult to put that kind of stuff together, especially on the timelines that they're up. They're trying to also run a college season right now. That's not typically where they're at during these awards. So I get why it was scaled back, but I also get why people feel like it wasn't doing justice to the winners in the award itself.
Yeah, of course. Normally the award announced during the halftime of the semifinals games at college championships in front of a live audience and everything. So we'll be back to that this spring in Milwaukee.
But I don't mind the fact that we got to vote after nationals, right?
Love
like
that.
I'm not against that. I feel like you and I have both been in support of that, and to give out the awards in the middle of nationals means that it's pretty much impossible to do voting during nationals. So maybe there's trade-offs here and there.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm also surprised they have not moved toward trying to do this award in club. Is that a surprise to you? Am I missing something?
Like having a player voted award for the club division?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really know why they don't do that either.
I mean, maybe they're worried that the same people would win it every year. Maybe
I don't know
you could easily have a rule. You can't be nominated 2 years in a row. Like,
I feel like people would vote.
I think so too, but low-hanging fruit.
Let's just create an award.
I mean, we did. It's called Player of the Year.
Well,
but
right,
we
but
could create it. We could create a player voted. Yeah, why are we giving this idea away for free?
Let's just do it.
Stay away from our idea. We're doing this.
Let's just do it. I'm actually serious. Let's do it. We'll
All right, somebody submit some names for us. People tweeted us with names for the club player voted award.
Hit us up at DeepLookPod on Twitter, deeplook@ultiworld.com.
I look forward to getting all the Carl Doge suggestions or whatever. Is it still a thing? Do we still do that meme?
I don't know. I feel like I don't know where the culture is right now in Ultimate. It's like we haven't had like a normal season in so long that everything feels like sort of lost in this world. All right, well, let's get into the Queen City tune-up. UNC getting the win in both divisions. Not a surprise, but what may have been surprising is that the games were a little closer than I think maybe we would have expected. Certainly, we knew the UNC men's team was going to take a step back, but we also expected the UNC women's team to be totally dominant. But they're not playing with all of their players yet, Keith. No Ann Worth, probably not going to play until late in the postseason. And Karen Earhart also not cleaning up this weekend. So despite the fact that they were missing probably their two best players, they still won the tournament. But some games anyway, were tight.
It feels to me a little bit like Pleiades is not necessarily pulling punches, but they're going like with the everybody contributes. We don't need to cross over lines kind of thing. And I do think that's a little bit to their detriment in their ability to perform right now. Their O-line feels like it's lacking some pop that it might have had in other years. They've lost, Bridget Meisner, Tyler Smith. They've lost some experience around them. So at this point, they brought over Alex Barnett. They've also added Maya Powell. So they are kind of at the center of that line along with Ellie Youngst and Teresa Yu. And it feels like they're missing another of like the dynamic cutters. Dawn Colton would be an excellent addition to that line, but she's pretty much heading up their D line. So I'll be curious to see, Karen Earhart would have been a huge addition. I mean, she fits right into the slot that they need.
Right. Or Ann Worth. I mean,
or Ann Worth, who's like the best.
I think you probably put one of them on each line. I think that, you don't worry about them. It's just like going to be plug and play at some point. Those players are so good.
Are you not a little bit worried about Worth, whose like number one aspect was like her explosive quickness coming off of a lengthy ACL injury? You're not a little worried?
Well, I mean, not really.
Okay.
I think
80% Ann Worth might be just still the best player in the country.
Say. Like, let's say that she's, that she's not top player in the country level, that she is at 80%. She's still going to be an elite O-line cutter. And like,
right.
Ella Youngst can be their number one. That's totally fine. Ella Youngst was tearing it up this weekend. So I think I don't even really want to talk that much about UNC because I don't think it's the most interesting
Understandably.
story this weekend. They're still very good, even without some of their best players. Let's talk UNC men's, and then let's move off the topic. They cruise to the final. They play Georgia there. Close game, 13-11. Georgia almost caught all the way up thanks to electric play from Hayden Austin-Knabb, who won the 2021 Player of the Year award for his play with Georgia at Nationals. Now, Georgia was playing without Matt Cook in this game, who appears to have suffered a pretty significant knee injury that, I guess we're still waiting to hear what the prognosis is going to be, but it seems like it could be a season ender, unfortunately. Matt Cook, their big deep cutter, who was a huge part of their run in Norco last fall, but they still hung in there with UNC. Keith, what did you see from this game? Do you feel like do you feel like Georgia belongs in their spot at number 2 in the country, and can they beat UNC when it counts at nationals?
I definitely think they belong in the number 2 spot. I don't really see an argument otherwise. I mean, they're the only team that we've seen run with UNC in like a meaningful way. They had some hiccups during the tournament. They were trailing at halftime a couple of times, I think. But they ended up pulling those games out. They're not the most efficient team ever. I didn't think that aside from that brief moment where Hayden Austin-Knabb kind of took over the game a little bit, I never felt exactly like they were threatening UNC. There was one of those push and pull games. Maybe there's a couple turnovers, but mostly there's some holds. A lot of new faces for UNC, so you could see them kind of working through the kinks with that. Well, it's a lot of the same faces for that Georgia team. Definitely the number 2. I'm not yet a believer that they can beat UNC. Although when you see Hayden Austin-Knabb take over a game, you're kind of like, well, if they get that for a couple more points, maybe it's a different story.
Yeah, lots of new names for UNC. Folks we haven't really talked about in the past or seen on the field in some cases. Who stood out to you?
So one of those names is somebody who basically like changed their name, Brett Smith, who was going by a different name, Rutledge Smith, at the 2021 championships, whichever one he put into the USAU system. So now looking like Brett Smith, but he I think a lot of the attention was on Josh Singleton on their O-line, but Brett Smith looks like he's going to fit in very well and be a really productive player for them for his entire tenure there. Luke Dwan and Jason Manning, both players who were standouts, able to make a lot of difficult catches, dangerous in the red zone. So they're bringing in some new names to kind of fill in. And then we're seeing some of those other players from last year take on expanded roles, but you're getting a lot of Matt McKnight. You're getting a lot of John McDonald. I think you're probably going to see more Tommy Williams as the year goes on, but this is a deep team. You're seeing these new players who like guys who've been on the sideline doing the cheers for a couple of years. I mean, you're starting to see them step up into bigger roles and look the part. So they don't look like the star-studded team that we saw in the fall, but I still think they're the number 1 team without a doubt.
Yeah. The question is, will that lack of star power on the O-line be a problem for them at nationals? I don't know. I mean, Liam Searles-Bowes is probably the best player in the country right now. And so
he looked like he was on cruise control,
right,
to me.
I mean, come on. This is Queen City. Like, they knew they were going to win, and they won. I'm not going to overdraw conclusions from this, but I do think that there's like enough uncertainty with the team now and with enough new younger players who haven't necessarily played in the pressure spots that it doesn't feel like a foregone conclusion that UNC is going to win the title this year. And we wait to see what happens at Easterns. And I'll be curious to see how things shake out there. But let's talk about some other teams. Why don't we bounce back into the women's division? Vermont makes the final. And Keith, you called it. But I think
I nailed it.
The thing about Vermont is they looked even better than probably even you anticipated on their path to this final.
They did, and to my understanding, they were doing it without Emily Pazzi. I know you're
clothes on the sideline.
Yeah, so I know you're at the president of the fan club right now.
The hype category, the hype is very real for Vermont right now.
They there are people there. I think there was even an argument on r/ultimate about Vermont and how dependent they were on Kennedy McCarthy. I mean, she's their best player. She's very good. They are not dependent on her. I do not feel like they are. Now, to be an elite team, I don't think they could do that without her. But there are a lot of players making contributions. Sarah Von Depp, I think, was awesome. She was playing very well. But Ali Hureski was also playing really well. They had athletes who could go up and make plays. They had a group of handlers that did not need McCarthy around the disc to be successful. They ran some zone, so they have a couple different looks that I think speaks to a team that has some experience, so they can be working on more advanced tactics at this point in the year, which I think could really favor them come the end of the year. I mean, that's some of the benefit that they are going to get over teams like Tufts and Northeastern in their region. They played in the fall, so they had a chance to kind of build this experience base and work from there coming into the spring. So I think that could be something that works out in their favor.
Well, they know one thing they got to do. They got to figure out who the hell is going to guard Ella Jungst, who just destroyed them in the final. And look, it's a tough matchup. I think we can all agree on that. But they're going to have to try to figure something out to slow that offense down. But it is plausible to me that we see this Vermont team make the championship final in Milwaukee. I don't think that's crazy, because Emily Pazzi is going to come in and be another huge addition to wherever they put her on the field. And you're right, Keith. Like, they're a little deeper than maybe team. They used to be a thin team, and they've built players up to the point where they're now. I mean, they're not one of the deepest teams in the country. This is not UNC we're talking about here, but they have some depth enough to make them an interesting team. I mean, they crushed everybody they played, except UNC who they lost to in the final. I mean, they beat Pittsburgh 13-6, Keith. Like, Pittsburgh's a good team.
They rolled them.
And they beat Georgia. To be fair, Marie Perivier not playing in the game. They beat Georgia 12-4. I mean, these are nationals teams. They just get smoked. So I'm very high on this Vermont team. I'm regretting that I didn't pick them to make the final at this tournament. But Pitt got their shot, and Vermont was clearly the much better team.
I'll be curious if they, I think Ella Jungst's success kind of points to, maybe some areas of defensive weakness that Vermont has. I don't know if they necessarily have a stopper.
Exactly.
McCarthy maybe Pazzi can be in that role.
They got to play
maybe
both
that's
ways,
a place
right?
to put her right away. McCarthy, will take some of their toughest matchups, but I think she's a little more built for, big downfield cutters that she can, be physical with. Watching her and Dawn Colton play against each other was a lot of fun, but I don't know that necessarily her best matchup is going to be like a small, speedy undercutter like Youngs. So they might need to find somebody who can take on that role or guard like particularly quick handlers, things like that. So they look the part. They look good. Although there's some argument that they weren't the second best team of this tournament, Charlie.
That's right. Tufts' results speak to them being maybe the better team. Now, I'll be curious to see what happens when we see Vermont at full strength. But Tufts versus Vermont in the New England final, and book it, it's coming. That's going to be one to watch, because Tufts, Tufts, because they didn't play, they couldn't go to nationals, right? Remember, they qualified for nationals and then declined their bid. We haven't really seen much of them on the national stage for a while. But don't forget that back in 2020. Before COVID canceled the season, Tufts was a top 3 team, arguably top 2 team in the country. And they came back at this tournament and showed us that they are still very, very clearly one of the best teams in the country. I think, Keith, that we'll have to wait and see, but I think that they have a chance to be a semifinals team at nationals, probably just as much as Vermont.
I agree. And they are, again, like we've gotten used to from Tufts, they're deep. They have, 8 or 9 pretty solid contributors who are involved with their play. Leah Schwartz is a new addition for them, had a big handling role for them. Olivia Goss looked really effective downfield. But, obviously Hazel Ostrowski is a strong player, but Julia Lober was playing well. They have Leah Helling. So they're going to be a team that has a number of players, and they're always well coached. They have a variety of different looks to throw at teams offensively and defensively. So that's one of the things that I think has always been a strength of their program and certainly stands out now. I think it could be easy to overrate them a little bit. It depends, right now their results against Virginia look really good, but how will we look at that at the end of the season? How will they hold up over the course of the year? But I have no real doubts about them at the moment. They looked the part of a team that could be a semifinal team.
Yeah, they played the closest game of the weekend against UNC, and they smashed everybody else. 13-0 over Florida, 13-4 over Virginia, a team that was in the top 25, 13-6 over Pittsburgh. So, Pittsburgh gets thumped by both Vermont and Tufts. We'll see what happens with them. I mean, do you have concerns about Pitt, or is this just early season, missing some players? Don't worry about it.
I do think they were playing without Jesse Sum, but I am a little concerned. I mean, they did not play well in that game against Vermont, and they lost to Appalachian State, the team that I think we have to talk about after this. App State, and they lost those games soundly. I mean, they really kind of laid an egg in the semifinal against Vermont. They just kind of wilted in front of Vermont's zone, and they started the game with a break. So they like started the game blocking the first centering pass, I think, and then got a break. Like from there, it was basically all Vermont. I don't know what was up with that. Some of it was just bad drops, easy reset drops, unders drops, things like that. But they looked really out of sorts, and that's concerning to see. Now, maybe you chalk it up to just kind of early season stuff, but that could get ironed out. I still like the talent. When you watch on a throw-to-throw basis, you're like, okay, they're good players on this team, and they'll get Jesse Sun back, but yeah, not a great start for Pittsburgh and concerning, especially seeing them, they struggled on both days, like losing to Appalachian State on Saturday, then losing again to Vermont on Sunday in that same kind of way is concerning because it can't be like, okay, this was just like a blip or it was the conditions or something like that. That's there. You should be a little worried if you're Pittsburgh, although nobody else in the region looks like they're going to really challenge them. But I think Pittsburgh's aspirations are higher than just winning the Ohio Valley.
So some quick hits on some other teams. Before we get to App State, let's talk about BYU, another team that only played on Saturday. So BYU goes 3-1. They lose 11-5 to UNC, but they comfortably beat Ohio, Michigan, and Columbia. They passed the test here for me, Keith, especially that win over Ohio. I mean, it's kind of like you wish you could see them against some other teams, like maybe a little more power match to them. Like I would have loved to see them get a game against Tufts or Vermont. And so, Ohio, good win, 13-8, good win. They did exactly what we expected them to do, which is go 3-1 and lose to UNC. And ultimately, I think I was looking at BYU as kind of a signal of how are the West Coast teams gonna sort of fit into the overall picture. Ultimately, I think that the rankings were about right, which is that the West Coast teams are solid. Teams across the board are a little bit worse this year because they've lost all these alums and they've had 2 years off. So I think even though we saw generally the West Coast teams maybe looking a little bit weaker than we saw them in the fall, I think that's kind of been true across the board from the results we're seeing. And so I think that the West Coast teams are going to be just fine. I don't expect any of them to beat UNC, but this doesn't make me downgrade or upgrade the West Coast relative to the East Coast based on what we saw from BYU.
I think maybe I ever so slightly downgrade the West Coast, but I also think, we haven't seen what could be the 3 best teams in the West Coast. We haven't seen Washington, we haven't seen UC Davis, and we haven't seen UBC. Those are the 3 best teams on the West Coast. UC Santa Barbara, UC San Diego, obviously perfectly in the mix for that conversation. But those are 3 of the teams, and then I guess we count Colorado as a West Coast team, like they're the western half of the country. So we'll see them at Pres Day. But this is, to me, it's fine results for BYU. My sense is that they are like a mid-teens team in the power rankings, somewhere in that 15 to 19 range or something like that, 15 to 17. And that's kind of what these results look like on paper. Although obviously with 4 games, you don't have a lot of conclusions to draw.
Oh, well, now we got to talk about App State. So App State played Saturday and then dropped out of the tournament. They were playing with, I believe, was it 8 players?
8 players, although somebody told me that the 8th player didn't play very much.
Okay, so they had they played with the same 7 players for most of the weekend, and they won all of their games and in dominant fashion. They beat certainly their best win. The only one that really you need to look at, I think, is the 11-6 over Pittsburgh. Look, Margaret Berry and co. I mean, this team, Keith, I don't know what to make of it because you can't take a 7 to 10 player roster and like try to go to nationals with it. I don't even think you're allowed to do that. Are you?
Are you sure? I seem to remember a team going to semifinals with the exact same recipe, the Central Florida Sirens. Like, run a lot of zone, run your offense through 3 or 4 people, have everybody else get really good at their zone positions and at making continue cuts. Like, it's a simple formula. Is it great for longevity? No, but can it give you a great up year when you have a bunch of talent? Which this team has the players. They have 3 Berries now: Margaret, Abigail, and Karis Berry. And Abigail, from what I was told, was having a great weekend. So they could be scary. I mean, it's hard to know what to make of them, right? You get one day of results. They ran a lot of zone. Like, is that something that's going to have diminishing returns by the end of the season? Probably. But it could certainly be a recipe to give somebody some trouble. And it's a great win to have an 11-6 win over Pitt. And to be able to back that up with other wins in other games. It's a good sign for them. We were a little hype on them in the fall. They obviously couldn't finish it off, but that's understandable. And I think they're going to be in the same position to be a real spoiler and an outside chance of nationals, depending on how the bid situation shakes out in the AC, especially with nobody else looking like a particularly strong second seed.
Yeah,
in the AC.
who do you look at right now? Obviously UNC at the top, and then after that, it's probably App State, isn't it? Like, Virginia seems to have dropped off quite a bit since the fall. Where else do you go, Keith?
I don't know if there is really anybody else that you're looking at and feeling like they're a great candidate. I mean, I still think Virginia will probably come through in the end. I think this was a real down weekend for them, but I think that they're capable of more than this. But yeah, certainly you look at our power rankings, I have no qualms with App State being higher at this point.
And, I'd be shocked if the AC didn't get at least 2 bids. We don't know how they're going to do yet, but I'd be shocked.
Yeah, I don't know how they'll do it, but we've seen the AC be a one bid region plenty of times before, but you got to think that most of the systems that we talked about on the show in our subscribers bonus segment last week, almost all of those are going to award the AC multiple bids.
Right. Let's talk about the men's division, and let's go back to Vermont, because Vermont was certainly one of the biggest stories this weekend. They make it all the way to the semifinals, and they get some very, very exciting wins along the way, Keith. They beat NC State to open the tournament. Then they backed it up with a win over Ohio State. These are both teams that have been in college nationals a couple of times now. Keith, you picked this team out as one to maybe pop into the top 25. Well, no doubt about it. I think that all of a sudden we're looking at this Vermont team, which is drawing from Maine, which is drawing from across New England, and this Vermont program, like, wow, it's happening fast, but like, we're talking about one of the best up and coming programs in the country in both divisions.
They debuted at 14 in the men's division this week, and deservedly so. Now they have there's good news, bad news here. The good news is they have like exactly the recipe I think you want to have that breakthrough season. They have some top level experienced players who've got elite club experience. They have those players. They've added Kuchuan Ponzio, who used to play at Oregon. He played with Rhino. He played a little bit with Boston Glory. So he's going to be a great defender for them. A couple of these other guys have also played with some high-level club teams, Gabe Smestad, Eli Standard. But then after that, they also have some really good recruits, young players who are stepping into big roles. Declan Kervick was a big threat for them downfield this weekend. Ryan Bliss was really helpful in the backfield for them. So like it's just the combination you want. You have those experienced players who got the club level experience under their belt. Then you have these new young players to come in to add energy to the team, also give you a nice long-term outlook. The bad news is their region looks awesome, and they're in a year where we don't know how they're going to do bids. So they could legitimately be the 14th best team in the country and not get to go to nationals.
Yeah. Like what's the current New England power rankings?
Based on our power rankings, we have UMass, Northeastern Vermont, Tufts.
You forgot about Brown.
Brown at the top, obviously. So Brown, UMass, Northeastern Vermont, Tufts. So even at number 14 right now, they are the 4th team in their region.
Crazy stacked. And like, at best they get 3 bids, right?
It's hard to think of a scenario where they're going to get 4 bids.
And you don't see them beating Brown. So they got to get one of those second 2 spots, assuming there's 3, which is not a guarantee. And they're going up against teams with a lot more experience in big games than them. It's going to be tough. It's going to be exciting, though. I mean, imagine if this was a normal year with the way that Northeastern and UMass played at Florida warm-up and the way that Brown has looked so far, obviously winning Florida warm-up, and then Vermont playing as well as they did. I mean, this could be a 4-bid region in a normal year. And this is why Charlie, I think it's painful to see no rankings this year, because it's got, somebody's going to get left out, and it might be Vermont.
Charlie's already looking at USA Ultimate to announce regionals dates and locations so he can book his travel plans for New England regionals.
That's going to be just crazy. The backdoor bracket will be a lot of fun, regardless of how many bids it ends up being. So what else stands out to you in the men's division, Keith?
We already talked about Georgia. There were some really disappointing performances from some of the ranked teams, some of the really successful programs. Wilmington and Ohio State being the two that stand out the most. Both teams, their score reporter has been a little wonky, so I don't feel like I can confidently say what happened in consolation play for these teams. But from what I've heard on Twitter, certainly took some L's to teams that are less notable. UNC Charlotte apparently beat Ohio State. William & Mary, I think, beat Wilmington, according to what folks on Twitter are saying. So, those are not good losses. Wilmington's weekend, really unremarkable. I think they beat Michigan on double game point,
which is a great win.
Which is a great win. I think they let Michigan back into that game if memory serves. But it's also like the last round of pool play. Michigan, I think, had the pool locked up. Wilmington was basically eliminated. Like, do you wonder about that game a little bit?
Always.
I don't know.
Always.
That kind of thing, tough to say what that means, especially in the context of, going out there. They lost by 4 to Virginia. They lose to Carnegie Mellon. They lose to Purdue. They lose to Notre Dame.
They got smoked by Purdue. They only scored 6 goals against Purdue.
I don't know what is going on, but ring the alarm, hit the bell, push the big red button. Like it's panic time in Wilmington. It's time to panic.
Well, I think what it does for me is when I go back and I look at the Carolina kickoff results and I see, they win their games, they lose to NC State by 4 and UNC by 5. You're like, okay, that makes sense because, of where we thought those teams were, but NC State's not as good as we thought. And so now those results don't look as good. And they played close games with South Carolina and Georgetown. Well, I think it's just that UNC Wilmington isn't that good, Keith. I think it's that simple. I just don't think they're that good. I mean, they have some great players. We saw them look good at the beginning of the 2019-2020 season. But, Ethan Elizarde is like probably their best player, but I don't know. These results do not look like this team is going to be knocking on the door of nationals.
It doesn't feel like that, especially with the way that bids could fall. It feels like right now they're in the pecking order behind certainly behind NC State, but probably behind William & Mary or something. Like we've seen Duke have some nice results. Georgetown, like it's going to be crowded, and it feels like they're in the middle of the crowd rather than at the front asserting themselves in some meaningful way. So disappointing weekend for them. Ohio State as well. They feel like they're quite a ways off from Pitt. And we know that both of those programs lost some really important players. So it's concerning to see them struggle out of the gates. You feel like there's explanation for it, but you also feel like they're succumbing to the things that you're worried about.
Yeah. Well, how about Michigan? I mean, so they do drop that game that was not relevant to the bracket to Wilmington after crushing Carnegie Mellon and Virginia in their first 2 games. And then they get a nice win over NC State, and then they lose very close to Georgia in a game that was just about as exciting and well contested as we thought it might be going into it. A rematch of the semis at nationals. And so, I mean, I feel like this is like a passing grade for Michigan. I don't know that anything here stands out above what I expected from them. Getting a win against Georgia would have been notable, but instead they lose close. This is a good team. They should win the Great Lakes. They should be in the bracket at nationals. I don't know that I can see them going beyond. I think getting back to semis would be a good result for them.
Indeed, I do think that that's possible. It feels like they're lacking for star power. Like they're lacking somebody who can take over in a meaningful way. Like they had some of that with Ray Lou last year. Jared Schwally could have that in moments. They've got some guys who are able to take on bigger roles. I think Ashwin Pathakuchi is the person I would highlight as somebody who could really step up and be that player for them this year. They're deep. I mean, they just don't really put anybody on the field who stinks. You know what I mean? Like, and there's a lot of value in that. Like, being able to put consistently 7 players on the field who can get the job done is going to beat a lot of teams, especially like mid-level teams. I think it could serve them really well in region at regionals, but I don't know what it's going to do for them when they're in tougher games against some of the teams they're going to face potentially on that path if they want to get back to semis or get through quarters, something like that.
So we've talked about all of the semifinalists. Your other quarterfinalists were William and Mary, who had a solid weekend. UNC Charlotte getting a win over Virginia in pre-quarters. Ohio State and NC State. So, I mean, obviously the sort of the odd team out here is UNC Charlotte coming in as the 14th seed. They dropped their opening 2 games to William and Mary in Georgia. But then they go 3-1 the rest of the weekend with wins over Purdue, Virginia, and Ohio State. They lose 15-10 to Vermont. Program on the rise, benefiting from the growth in North Carolina Ultimate. I'm curious to see what this team does the rest of the season because these results are not outstanding. Obviously, the win over Ohio State stands out, but hard to know what to make of a deep consolation game at a tournament that has no rankings import. But, got to give credit where it's due. This certainly outplayed their seed and looked like a team that could be, a Sunday regionals team.
I look less at the Ohio State game for them and more at the Purdue or Virginia games. Like Purdue is a solid team. Virginia is typically a solid team in the Atlantic Coast. Like those are wins that that those teams want to get. And UNC Charlotte took care of business. Like I think those wins have meaning for that team. And so, that it's tough because it's so crowded in the middle of the AC, but I don't see why UNC Charlotte can't fight their way in there.
William and Mary also staying relevant. I mean, they lose to Purdue. You don't love to see that. Otherwise, though, they had good results. Played close with Georgia, lost to UNC, but got other wins in other games, including a win over NC State.
They're interesting.
They're interesting.
My understanding was that they were missing some starters, some like pretty key players for them. And so for them to have like a pretty solid weekend without those players speaks highly. I mean, they could be a dangerous team. If I don't know how, like we still are so up in the air with the bid situation, but with NC State and Wilmington looking a little bit down, I wouldn't favor William and Mary against NC State, but this could be the 3rd best team in the region.
Very interesting to see. I mean, I think I was sort of expecting them to take a big step back, post Johnny Malks and some of the other key stars they had. But look, this looks like it might be a program with some longevity and a team to keep an eye on. So, Queen City Tune-Up's in the books. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to look ahead to the Pres Day invite. Stay with us. It's Deep Look.
We've talked about Raleigh and the year they had in 2021 so much on the show. And now North Carolina Pro Ultimate and Triangle Ultimate are joining forces to bring you Carolina Ultimate Flight School Summer Camp 2022 on the campus of NC State in Raleigh. This Ultimate Frisbee Camp offers basic and advanced tactics that the Raleigh pros use to up their game every season. The Raleigh Flyers and Raleigh Radiants believe in furthering the development of Youth Ultimate to both grow the sport and prepare young players with the skills and athleticism they need to succeed on the field. And we certainly see how that's worked out for Raleigh. You'll learn from nationally renowned players and innovative coaches, including Matt Gujohannes, Don Colton, Saul Yannick, Terrence Mitchell, Josh Hartzog, Alex Barnett, Seth Weaver, and many more. That's a big list. And as an added bonus, coaches David Allison and Mike Denardis, who've won a lot of awards here at Ultiworld, will be in attendance for special sessions. Now, you can use discount code UW Flight School for $50 off, and you can sign up at triangleultimate.org/CUFS.
Hello, Ultimate coaches and captains. This is Melissa Whitmer of the Ultimate Athlete Project, and this is your official invitation to the 2022 UAP Coaching Conference. At this year's conference, you can expect to hear from speakers from all over the world, as usual. This year, we've got coaches representing Colombia, Venezuela, Australia, the United States, Canada, Japan, Egypt, and perhaps some others. We're going to cover topics from how to gamify your practices to how to build a more equitable global Ultimate community. So whether you are a new coach who needs all the help you can get, or a seasoned coach who's on the lookout for any pieces of new information and new perspectives you can acquire, this is the place to get that. The UAP Coaching Conference is like nothing else. So best part, the conference is free to attend live, or for just $19 a month, you can get access to all of the conference recordings from the past 10 years. So you can learn more about those options and sign up for free for the conference at theuap.com. That's THEUAP.com. I will see you online there.
Welcome back to Deep Look. While we were in the break, we got some breaking news. The Raleigh Flyers, the defending AUDL champions, have changed their name, Keith. They are now going to be the Carolina Flyers. So they're going statewide. Of course, other North Carolina pro teams do this as well. Carolina Panthers, Carolina Hurricanes. So this is there's some precedent here. So they're going to be the Carolina Flyers. And this is a trend that we've seen. We've had some other teams rebrand as well. The Dallas Roughnecks are now the Dallas Legion. So they keep the city but change the name. And then we have the Spiders, the San Jose Spiders. They're now the Oakland Spiders. So they are changing literally where they're playing. So, Keith, I'd like you to rank these in terms of best rebranding.
Best rebranding. I think I'm gonna go. I'm definitely gonna put Carolina first. But Legion and Oakland, like I like them going back to Oakland. Oakland's where I met my wife. I like Oakland. I don't really like the new spider logo. I don't really get it. So I guess I'll put Legion ahead. I don't know. They're pretty even, those two. It's like a 2B, 2A kind of thing.
The problem with the Spiders is that the Spiders like concept is like a Silicon Valley thing, which really fits San Jose better than it fits Oakland. And so it's like when it's like the Utah Jazz. It's like
the Los Angeles Lakers for all those
really make
in
sense
LA
as much now. Dallas Legion is interesting because now I feel like it's an MLS team. It's like they have this very like sort of pro kind of bland corporate sports name.
It's so
probably
generic.
Better
feeling.
than Roughnecks though. I never liked that name, and I hated their jerseys. I hated them. The red blue is like this awful combination, just the ugliest jerseys in the league. So they have like professional looking branding now, which is nice, but it has nothing to do with Dallas as far as I can tell. It's like there's like a lion in the logo. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't really get it. They fit it. I think somebody in our Discord said what I feel, which is that it feels like an esports team.
Yeah.
This feels like something about the word Legion. I find myself confused by it. Did San Diego also update their logo? I feel like their logo on the site looks different than it used to. But yeah, there's not a lot of daring in any of this branding, I guess. I don't know what's going on with the spider on the logo in Oakland either. They could have taken this opportunity to go a different direction, and I think they felt like I don't feel like the Spiders is that important to keep, so I don't know why they felt like they need to keep it. But
the Growlers do have a new logo, although I can't remember now if they did it in the off season or like last year sometime. But they had the like wolf logo, and now it's a round logo with the wolf looking the other direction. It's like definitely more unified as a logo than before.
And we'll see how Dallas's new colors work out. I think there's going to be some conflict with Pittsburgh in my mind, but
how about all the
they'll probably never see each other.
Every team on the West Coast is like red.
I guess Tampa Bay actually. So Dallas is a little more gold maybe than Tampa Bay, who's a little more yellow.
A little more yellow.
But you don't like to have the same color scheme similarities as teams in your division. It's not great.
Agree. I totally agree.
I gotta say, like overall, AUDL branding trailing well behind our favorites, the Western Ultimate League. There's like maybe 4 or 5 teams whose branding I'm like, yeah, I like this.
We have the. I meant to bring this up earlier, Keith, but let's talk about it now. We have the ordering for the Callahan Finalists, which shout out to William Brody Brotman, who keeps track of this over on the Pit Ultimate website. If you go to pitultimate.org, you can go to the history tab and find historical information about both college nationals and the Callahan Award and the Donovan Award. So the top 5, I have the men's division in front of me. I think you have the women's division pulled up. So the men's division, Azeez Adeyemi obviously wins it. Second place was Anders Jungst. Third, Johnny Malks. Fourth, Michael Lee. And fifth, Cole Jurek. Your thoughts?
It makes me think about the challenges of having a bunch of players from the same region. Now, I believe they do ranked choice voting. So it does kind of benefit you because you're suddenly a bunch of people in your region have a good reason to vote. And chances are, if they vote after they vote for their candidate in the region, they're probably going to vote for the other people in the region unless your team is like despicable or something. So I do think it has some benefits to it, but it's weird that the 3 AC candidates are all clumped together ahead of Cole Jurek, who's like a perfectly deserving candidate.
Didn't play at Nationals. Could have hurt him.
Yeah. Probably hurt. So interesting setup. It does make me wonder about the regional effects.
And Keith, you got the women's top 5 right there?
I do. Jasmine Childress, obviously in first place. In second, keeping the defense going, Jesse Sun. Both of those players have been runners up in our Defensive Player of the Year voting, and obviously Adeyemi, known for his defense as well. Bridget Meisner out of North Carolina in third. Alex Diaz from UC San Diego in fourth, and Marie Perivier from Georgia in fifth.
That's disrespectful to Marie Perivier. That's disrespectful. Obviously, all great players. I hope Marie Perivier gets nominated again because I think she could win. We'll see what happens.
That is possible, but I don't know. I'm a little worried about Georgia right now.
Well, that's fair, but I don't know. They've been a thin team that relies a lot on Marie Perivier. So when they don't have Marie Perivier, they don't look very good. I don't make much of that. Like legitimately, Marie is the ticket for that team being successful in the field. She like takes all the tough shots, gets every other, and that's why I think she could win the Callahan Award.
I don't think you can be a one-trick pony at nationals. Like I think that might be able to get them to nationals, but I don't know if they can do anything for them.
I'm not saying they're going to win the championship. I'm not picking them to win the title. I'm picking Marie Perivier.
Yeah, but like MVP. If they want to make the bracket, like it's going to take a little bit more. I'm a little worried about the lack of depth. She's got to throw it to somebody, or somebody's got to throw it to her. They can't throw it to herself.
What did Ella Jungst tell us when she came on the show? What'd she tell us?
She said that Marie Perivier was the best player they played against,
and Marie Perivier was the best player they went up against.
But that was in 2020. What happened since then? Well, what changed?
What changed? Nothing changed. Marie Perivier didn't play much. If she doesn't play all season, then yeah, she's not going to win it. But I'm just saying, disrespectful to have her in fifth. Otherwise, I have no qualms with the list. It's a fine list. Nothing too shocking.
I would think if you were going to say that somebody got disrespected, it's Bridget Meisner, who I think in my mind, like if I had to guess, I would have probably put her as the favorite
to win.
Yeah,
I think Jasmine winning is probably what I would have picked. It's hard to win when your teammates are amazing. Not that Jasmine Childress didn't have great teammates too, but UNC dominant team. You're not even clear that Bridget Meisner is their best player. I don't know. I think it makes it harder to win in that situation. Doesn't have the kind of flashy game either that I think can translate. Probably the best player in the group, though. Just straight up. Like, to say that she's not the best player on UNC is not disrespecting Bridget Meisner. It's just saying how good UNC is.
That's fair. That's fair.
All right. So let's get to the Pres Day invite. It is this weekend in San Diego at UCSD. Typically this tournament draws a little bit more from out of the region, but because of the lack of rankings this year and perhaps COVID restrictions and such, not as many out of region teams, but still some key ones coming into the tournament. We're going to get our first look at the Oregon men. We're going to get our first look at the Stanford women. We will see UC Davis women for the first time. Cornell is flying out in the men's division from upstate New York all the way down to San Diego. Smart move. And so, also a chance to see the Colorado men and the Colorado women for the first time. So, where do those teams stack up? This is usually when we get our first look at them. 3-day tournament starts on Saturday, goes through Monday on President's Day. And so we're going to get, a lot of games, power pools in the men's division, and tons of matchups amongst the Southwest teams, of course, but also some key out-of-region teams. Keith, what are you looking for this weekend?
Well, it's got to be those debut teams that you mentioned, and obviously you want to start at the top. For me, seeing UC Davis in the women's division, seeing Colorado in the men's division, like those feel like the priorities to me. Where UC Davis so exciting at the college championships in the fall, some really exciting players. So I'm very curious. Could they be the best team in the Southwest? Like, it's very, very much possible. Is this a semifinals threat? Like, we got to see it to believe it, especially for a team that we haven't really seen do that over any sustained period. So seeing them is going to be really interesting. The Colorado men, same kind of story. Obviously, disappointing end in 2021 for them, but see how they rebound and what they do without Quinn Finer and Matthew Agee. How does the team respond to losing those players who've been in key roles for them for a number of years? But you mentioned a number of intriguing teams. There's definitely some teams that we don't know what to make of. Like, it's a hard year to have a real sense of who teams are until we see them on the field.
I'm especially interested to see the Oregon men. The team that we remember is basically gone, and keys handed over to players that were not big parts of the offense in the past. So, no more Xander Quees-on-Tice, no more Will Laurie. Silas Shuley will be the, kind of the key guy for them probably. And then Keali McCarter is their big rookie pickup. I think that they're probably going to outperform where they sit in the power rankings right now. That's just my baseline expectation because it's Oregon. This team's always good. They're always good. And it's just going to be new faces stepping up into new roles. Same we see at UNC.
We used to say that about Charlie? The Oregon women's team.
That's true. What happened there?
Just saying.
What happened to the recruiting pipeline
Nothing lasts
there?
forever.
Doesn't make any sense to me. Everybody started going to Washington.
Hey, they're coming to this tournament too. Maybe they'll surprise us. Maybe they win Pool B or something like that. We're eating our words, but nothing lasts forever. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. But you said the Washington women's team's coming? No, they are not.
No, they're not.
Okay. I thought
Oregon women's team's coming.
Yes. That is true. Maybe they could make a splash, but we haven't really seen a lot of evidence of that over the past couple seasons.
You want a team that can make a splash. I'm very intrigued by Utah women's team, Utah Spiral Jetty. There's been that Utah hype bubbling around. BYU's captured it a little bit this year, but we've been kind of waiting for this Utah team to break out. We've seen hints here or there over the past couple of years, but could this be the year? Could we finally get that Utah breakout? It's possible. It's possible. You got to keep an eye on that team.
You definitely do.
Got some really outstanding talent they've added.
I mean, they are in the power ranking. They're 23 in the power rankings right now. So got to go out there and prove it. Should be a fun one. Lots of film coming out for subscribers. We're going to have 14 games on film from the weekend. So head over to ultiworld.com/subscribe, where you'll also, of course, get access to Deep Look bonus segments for subscribers, along with lots of other benefits. So check that out. And if you're a college player and a college team, you can get a team pack access for film and subscriptions for your entire team and coaching staff for one low price. Check that out. Link in the Pres Day tournament preview and filming schedule. So, going to be a good one. We're getting ready for the big March tournaments. Stanford Invite, Eastern, Centex, Missouri Loves Company playing in the spring this year because of the lack of a fall season. So lots of action to come here in this college season. That is going to do it for our show this week. Thank you.
Hold your horses there, sir.
I'm holding them. The reins.
We got to do our picks.
The reins are pulled in. You're right.
We got to do our picks.
I am.
This guy's upset that I swept it last week. He doesn't want to see me.
Yikes. I'm just so out of the habit. It's crazy. Let's make our picks.
I know. We really, it used to be such a rhythm, and now we got to fight our way back into it.
All right. So top ranked teams, just to be clear, from this weekend, the top 25 teams. In the women's division, it's number 4 UCSB, number 5 UC Davis, number 8 UCSD, number 10 Colorado, number 14 UCLA, number 20 Stanford, and number 23 Utah. In the men's division, it's number 3 Colorado, number 8 Cal Poly SLO, number 19 Oregon, number 22 Cal, and number 23 UCLA. Keith, who goes first? I think you went first last week, right?
I really don't remember, to be honest with you.
I'm going to go in the men's division. I'm taking Cal Poly SLO over Colorado in the final. Calling the upset.
I support it. I have the same 2 teams in the final. I'm unsure of which I want to take to win. I think I hate to pick the same thing as you, but I think I got to go slow as well.
All right. How about for the women's division, Keith?
I am taking UCSB and Colorado to the final. So a little spice there. And I'm going to go with UCSB to win over Colorado.
I'm taking Davis over UCSB in the final.
Okay.
I think Davis's continuity is maybe going to put them at the pole position in the Southwest. So we'll see.
You know what? I'm changing my mind. I'm going Colorado.
Oh, okay.
Man, they have so many vets back. How is it? Is this right? This can't be right. There's no way Emma Capper could still be playing College Ultimate. There's just no way.
Yeah, we'll see. I feel like they should be the best team at this tournament. I don't think they're going to be, but I think they should be.
They underperformed in nationals.
They underperformed.
This team should be better. I'm sorry.
They underperformed
They're good.
last time I saw them at Pres Day in 2020. We'll see. I like the pick. So you've got Colorado over Santa Barbara, and I've got Davis over Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara's going to win now. You know that, right?
Yes, I do know that. San Diego is going to win now. That's probably what's really going to happen.
All right. Well, that will actually do it for this week's edition of Deep Look. We'll see you over in our subscriber bonus segment, ultiworld.com/subscribe. For Keith Raynor, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you next week.